So last year my truck was having problems. I replaced the head on the truck and did a bunch of other work. I got it running again, but then the fuel pump wasn't working. There was actually fuel spurting out of the fuel pump. So I took the fuel pump, the mechanical fuel pump, off of the side of the engine. I brought it inside, I took it all apart, got a rebuild kit, replaced a bunch of parts on it, and then I got it all cleaned up and put it back in the truck, and it immediately broke. So I fixed it, and then it broke again. So then I replaced it quickly with an electric fuel pump so that I could get the truck back on the road, and I go to test the electric fuel pump, and it is leaking. Maybe just some Teflon tape on the threads will help prevent that from leaking. I hope so. So once I installed the electric fuel pump, and yes, that is duct tape, but hey, it's military grade duct tape on a military vehicle, so it's fine. So after turning on the fuel pump, there was a little leak. I tightened up the fitting, added some tape to it, and that took care of the leak, and I was able to start the truck up and get it running. I fixed the fuel pump, it's not leaking anymore. I tried to start the truck, it started right up, but then the throttle stuck in the open position and it was revving quite a bit, so I immediately shut it off. Now it's a good thing that it's not a diesel, I don't have to worry about it running away. When I shut the ignition off, that turns off the power to the distributor, and that immediately shuts the truck down. It's very hard for the truck, for the gasoline to ignite itself like a diesel truck would. Usually when that happens, it means there's something wrong with your engine. But luckily this time I was able to shut the truck off before any damage occurred, and I was able to lubricate the entire throttle mechanism. And now I'm going to try to start the truck again. So a while back I made a video on how a carburetor works, and in that video I briefly discussed how to tune a carburetor, and I said that I would make a video showing how to tune a carburetor, with it while actually tuning a carburetor. Now I thought I had already made that video, and because of that and the fact that I was in a hurry, I didn't film the entire process of adjusting the carburetor, tuning the carburetor on my truck. But I just wanted to go over kind of the general idea of it. So when I first started the engine, I knew that the engine was running rich. That means that there's more fuel than there is air.
I knew this because the exhaust smelled like unburned fuel. So fuel that wasn't being burned inside the cylinders of the engine was coming out through the exhaust. That's also the cause of some of the smoke that you saw on startup. Now there can be other reasons why the engine is smoking. Bluish black smoke can mean that you are burning oil. Thick black smoke can mean that you're burning something else besides fuel or oil, like you're burning up your gaskets or something's going on. But anyway, I knew that it was running rich, so that gave me a point to start out with. And I also knew that I had to, when I previously worked on the carburetor, I had turned the idle set screw up, so it was idling very fast. So what I needed to do was I needed to take fuel away and turn down the idle, make it idle slower at a lower RPM. So the first thing I do is turn the idle down, and I lower the RPMs until it is just above where it would stall out. If I went any lower with the RPMs, the engine would stall out. And then I just adjust the mixture set screws. This carburetor is a dual barrel carburetor, so there's 2 set screws. And then changing the set screws, I knew that I needed to provide less fuel. I adjusted those screws, and the pattern of the engine noises sounded a lot more regular. It sounded like it wasn't trying to stall out. And then I would turn down the idle again. And this time I turned it too far. So turning it down just about to where it's ready to stall out, and then adjusting the mixture screws some more, and then getting it to where I have the slowest idle possible while still making sure it's not going to stall out. Now, I actually didn't do a perfect job adjusting the carburetor, and we had to adjust the carburetor several more times that weekend, but that's a story for another day.
I was able to start the truck up, and when it started up, it revved really high because the throttle stuck in its fully open position. So I went through and I greased all the grease fittings, I oiled some stuff, made sure that the throttle was not going to do that while I was driving, and I was able to move the truck, but I still didn't have brakes. So it took so long getting the fuel pump figured out and getting some solution to be able to get fuel to the truck that I really didn't have time to go through the brake system fully. And actually I've tried to work on the brakes before and I couldn't get the drums off, so that would add another week or two to the amount of time it would take to do the work that I wanted to do, which is to replace some of the wheel cylinders. So my assumption of what the problem was with the brakes is that I knew there was a leak somewhere. I thought maybe it's coming from one of the wheel cylinders, and that's why I can't really see the leaks. So I was going to start with the front wheel cylinders. I had gotten 2 of them. I was going to replace the 2 front wheel cylinders, and then I was going to take those, get rebuild kits for them. You basically take them apart, replace all the seals, and then eventually replace all of the wheel cylinders, and I might do that. Once again, I was in a hurry to get the truck running and driving, and so I just added more fluid, bled the brakes. However, this time, I think I might have actually solved the issue. As I was bleeding the brakes, I found one of the fittings was not very tight. It was leaking. And so I tightened it up, and then it was no longer leaking. So maybe that was the entire issue all along, because this was a very slow leak. When I would fill up the brakes and bleed the brakes, they would be fine for days, for weeks, even months. But then after a few months, that's when the pedal would start to go soft, and then eventually, after like 6 months or so, all the fluid would be gone. So that kind of slow leak might have been from that one fitting, who knows. So I guess we'll find out the next time I go and start the truck up, and I'll see if I have brakes. And then it was time to go to the garage to get the state inspection done.